Hello, welcome to our video for May's activity for our Free Arts Family Day here at the Art and Culture Center, Hollywood. My name is Amanda Smith and I'm the Director of Education. So glad you could make it and watch this video with us. As you may know, we are so grateful and fortunate enough to have the kind and generous support of PNC and the City of Hollywood in order to allow us to bring our Free Arts Family Day to our friends, families, and community once a month. So that's the third Sunday of every month. The center is free, so you can come and see all of our wonderful exhibitions for free, and then enjoy a interactive art making activity for the family upstairs in our community gallery. Every month we have a different theme. We try to do something STEAM based, so that connects a little bit to science, technology, math, but always has some art component at the heart of it, because that is who we are here at the Art and Culture Center, right? So without further ado, I want to show you our activities for this month. We are very excited again to be celebrating shells and the beginning of summer. So we'll be creating a shelled creation, a shelled crustacean creation, I should say, with a crab. And then we also have another little shelled friend, a little turtle. So, oh, and with my green screen, which is presenting the image behind me, you can't see his little face because it is green, but I'll show you on the other camera here in a second. For each month when we do these activities, especially since the pandemic, we've tried to really shift to using materials that you would find at home, so that if you can't make it to the center, hopefully you can follow along with these videos and still get to create some more art with us at home. So for today's activity, well, I should say activities, right? If you are planning to make the crab, you'll just need a couple pieces of construction paper, right? Probably of different colors. You'll want a marker or two. You might want more to kind of decorate the whole space. We have used googly eyes because I'm a really big fan of googly eyes. But then you'll also need a pair of scissors, a glue stick, and something round if you want to create perfect circles, but we'll talk more about that when I switch cameras and show you in detail how to make it work. For the turtle, all you'll need, again, some construction paper. If you have googly eyes, shocker, you'll want those as well. For the turtle, you'll actually probably want white glue, that liquid white glue. Because you're gluing kind of different, you're not just gluing paper to paper, which we'll talk more about in a second. We also used pom-poms if you have any of those lying around, but you can also use construction paper for the head if you don't have that. And then the only other thing is an old empty egg carton. We have found that the cardboard ones are the easiest to cut up, so I would suggest that, but I would also definitely suggest getting an adult's help with this part of it, because even for us, cutting these cartons can be a little tricky, and your adults will definitely want a more of a heavier pair of scissors than like kid scissors to cut the carton. And other than that, I think those are all the materials that you'll need. So I'm going to switch cameras so that we can get in depth as I walk you step by step through how to make both of those activities. Okay, wonderful. So as we were saying, right, if you wanted to make a little crustacean creation, all you will need would be those two pieces of construction paper. We're going to start with one. The first piece of paper we're going to start with is going to be the paper for our crab's body. Okay. And this is what I was saying. You might want something that you can use to create a circle with. So we're just using this old cleaned out yogurt container. You would definitely want to clean out the yogurt container before you use it, because otherwise it would be pretty gross. But I'm just setting it down. And again, it's a yogurt container, so something I normally would recycle or throw away. So I'm not concerned if I get marker on it. And I'm using a Sharpie. You might not want to in case you're worried about making a mistake, but I'm using it just so it's nice and dark for you to see and follow along. Okay, so I'm using my Sharpie and my round shape to create a perfectly round shape on my piece of paper. Now, the yogurt container is 2 different sizes, so I can make smaller circles with the other piece, or if I want really tiny circles, I might use something else, right? But to make your crab body look just like the one that we have, you're gonna want at least 1 big circle and then 4 smaller circles. Okay, so you're gonna continue like that. Once you have your circles drawn out, you will go ahead and cut them out. We're doing this a little bit like, I don't know, a cooking show, where I have some of the things kind of already prepped for us to move things along. And then you want your background, okay? You'll take each one of your circles for your crab body and pinchers and just fold it in half. Okay, I'll fold each one of these in half, right? You get the idea. Once you have it folded in half, I'm actually going to move it off of my background just because I get pretty messy in this step. Just another piece of paper so I don't get glue everywhere. I'm going to take one of my halves, take my glue stick, and just completely cover 1/2. Now only 1/2, right? Because if you noticed on the original one, it's kind of flopping open. It's kind of what we're going for. And take that, glue that down. Let's press. Okay, there we go. And the same thing with my claws. Okay, now general crafting tip, when I am, focused on gluing paper to paper together, especially something just fun, like a little arts and crafts activity like this, I find glue stick works really well, right? But if I'm gluing things like in our next one, or when I add the googly eyes in this step, I'm gonna wanna use the clear liquid glue, just because it holds on better. Okay, so you're gonna keep on gluing all your pieces. Okay, again, we're doing this cooking show style, right? So once you have all 5 of your pieces, 1 big, 2 little, right? Then you can draw, again, I'm just gonna use a Sharpie, but you might wanna use, maybe you wanna use a red marker. Maybe you want its body to be red, right? Let's say that crabs have 8 legs, okay, right? There we go, 8, right? And then you can draw your little face. Add some, oh, you want to add your eye stalks. The things that will hold up the crab's eyes. And then your googly eyes. So just like I said, right? With these ones, I definitely would use that white glue. Oh, it helps if you open it. And then just 1 little dot. It generally dries pretty clear. So I'm not too worried about, being super, super precise. There you go. And then you glue the other one on. You can add some other details right here. Again, as our one finish. I also created a bit of a gentleman crab, right? Also, in fact, if you get a little tired with the circles, right? This guy only has the 2. So fantastic. Okay, so that's the crab. And of course, once you've got that face started, hopefully you can add some more details. Now for our turtle friend, and now you can actually see him since I turned the green screen off, right? So for our turtle friend, again, you're going to want to grab your old empty cardboard egg carton. You can use styrofoam. It just seems, in our experience, a little trickier to cut the cardboard or the styrofoam actually. Okay, you can see I've already cut one of these out. But you do want to be careful. I find that like cutting this little kind of like peak off is helpful to kind of get in there. But again, definitely something that a grown-up should help you with, because it's even, you can kind of see me struggling here, right? It can be kind of hard. Okay. I'm gonna cut off one of those pieces. And hey, if you got the whole egg carton, you can make a whole, like a dozen turtles. I'm gonna cut off any of these little kind of flaps that are just kind of hanging out. Right. Okay. So now I've got our little base. right, I'm gonna set that to the side. I'm gonna grab my construction paper. Now for this, you will also need some construction paper. Oh, where did I put it? I had some green construction paper. Yeah, I placed it somewhere and I can't find it. That's okay. All right. So I just took these, so just some regular green construction paper and cut it into these little strips. You don't have to be super precise about how the size of it, the dimensions, anything like that. Okay, you make it skinnier, you make it a little fatter, although you do want to be able to fit 4 of them around the egg carton. Then you're just going to take the strip and just roll it up in a little curly Q, kind of tight spiral. Okay, there we go. Then you have your one little flap on the edge. Okay, again, just because I'm gluing paper to, I mean, cardboard is like a thicker paper, but still, it's not just another piece of construction paper. I am going to go ahead and use my white glue again. I'm going to put a little bit on there and then just push it. Whoops. So I've got my little tab here and I'm just pushing it into the inside of this shell. Okay, just like that. And I'm just holding it on there because with that white glue, sometimes it takes it a couple of seconds to like really grab on. Maybe just like 15 seconds or so, right? And then I've got one of my little legs, okay? And then I can continue those all the way around. Okay, so we're just gonna keep on adding those legs, right? Just gonna fold this up and attach it, okay? You could also, if you're having trouble with that way, you can also actually just try it as a strip and then roll it up once you've glued it on. I just find it doesn't, like this one, it's I think I did it that way, so it's a little looser of a roll, whereas this one's nice and tight. So you have those options, okay? Then for the head, if you have a pom-pom, you can just then, again with the white glue, gluing 2 googly eyes on it. I would do that for you, although honestly it gets really hard because you have to really hold them on there for a few seconds so that they don't pop back off. Okay, like this one I just added some more glue, so I'll do that with you now. What also might be handy, especially if you have an adult who's helping you with this and you have access to a hot glue gun, that tends to work really, really well with gluing non-paper pieces together, more constructing things like what we're doing here. But there you go. Enough of that white glue will work. You just have to give it time to dry. Okay, so you notice that I kind of held it on there for a little while as I talked, to kind of get that initial stick, and then very carefully lifted my hands away. Okay, so same thing. You just want to add, and then the same thing, you grab that whole pom-pom. I put a lot of glue on it, and then you want to press it and hold it into the cardboard shell. Okay. And again, with this white glue, it should dry pretty clear. So if you get a little bit where you don't mean it to be, it should be okay. Okay, so now we're just going to set that aside to dry. All right. So in the end, you'll have your little turtle and or your crab. Okay. So now as you keep working, I'm going to switch over to my other camera and give you a little background information about some of the wonderful shells that these different critters use. Back. Okay, wonderful. I hope you are hard at work on your shelled creation. And so while you're working, I just want to give you a little more information about some of these shells and just how swell these shells are. So shells, right? All different kinds of shells, all different kinds of animals, right? There are so many shells in the world, right? We've got turtle shells, we've got snail shells, we've got oyster shells, right? Seashells, lots and lots and lots of shells. And the way that these different shells come into being is very different. Some animals are making their own shells, some animals find other shells. And so it's really different. And look how different they can look, right? They can be really colorful. They can be maybe a little more plain with their coloring, but maybe their textures are really out of control, right? So there's all different types of shells in the world. Now, as I said, some animals make their own shells, right? All of these are images of snails or things related to snails, right? Here we have an adult snail and a baby snail. And you can see with that baby snail, it also has a teeny tiny little shell, right? That's because snails have their shells their entire lives and they make their own shells. So every time that snail comes out of that shell, it adds a little bit to that shell, creating more of a spiral, right? You see this spiral pattern here on the snail's shell, right? And see this little white line kind of along the edge of the shell where it ends and where the snail's body starts. That's the newest kind of freshest part of the shell. And so that's why it's this white color, right? And every time the snail is going to add to that shell. And the shell has all of these complicated spirals then inside of it. This animal here, this is a conch. Some of you might be familiar with that down here in South Florida, but that also is a type of snail, right? And it also creates a shell and then lives in these spirals, these like tight little spirals within these big, big shells. Now, other animals, right? Their bodies, like these 3 crabs here, their bodies themselves are their shells, right? Again, they have them their entire lives, right? They can't shed, I mean, they don't take off their shell and then try on a different one, right? These 3, those are their bodies. This one's a little different. We'll talk about that one in a second. And so this little friend here is something called a hermit crab. And these are all examples of a hermit crab, right? And whereas we saw the snail with that big complicated looking shell on its back, right? And we know that it grows that, the hermit crab's a little different. It actually will find different shells and it needs to find some like a shell that's been abandoned by something like a snail in order to use that to make its home. If it can't find the shell the right size, it might use trash that is on the street, or it might just not be able to survive. Here's what that crab looks like without its shell. Here's a hermit crab. You can see though that spiral. It might be kind of weird. I think it looks pretty cool. I really like science. But you can see in its body, right, it has that spiral shape and that helps it to fit inside that complicated shell that snail has built with that spiral in it, right? So a hermit crab is going to change shells throughout its life. But so many other animals, especially this one, turtles, actually never, ever, ever change their shells. Cartoons did a horrible disservice to us, lying to us throughout our whole childhood about turtles just being able to take off their shells, swap their shells, go and take a shower, whatever they need. No, a turtle shell is literally attached to its body and it grows with the turtle as the turtle grows. And so here you can actually see a teeny tiny little turtle coming out of its shell, or its egg shell, I should say, because we just said it cannot come out of its shell, but it comes out of that egg shell with its turtle shell, right? It is born with that shell, and that same shell will grow with the turtle as the turtle grows. Okay, it will never be able to take that shell off, because if we look inside the shell, this is the skeleton of a turtle that I'm pointing to now. This right here is the turtle's backbone. Okay, the same thing that we have running right down the middle of our back, the turtles have in their bodies, but theirs is attached to their shell. So you can kind of think of their shell almost like a bunch of rib cages kind of starting to wrap around to keep all of that, its organs and its body safe, right? But that also means that that backbone is attached. You follow that backbone all the way up, its neck is attached and its head, right? So it can never take its shell off. And here you can see it from the side, if that helps too, right? There's that backbone right along the dome, the top part of the shell, which we'll talk about the name carapace in a second for that. But I just want to point this out, right? That shell is going to stay with the turtle for its entire life. That also means that the turtle can feel a bit through that shell. So if you ever see a turtle with one of those hard shells, and even if it's completely enclosed and hiding inside of that shell, if you knock on that shell, it can kind of feel it, okay? And so it's better not to be very gentle with the entire turtle, just like you would expect somebody to be gentle with you, right? Knocking on a turtle shell is kind of like somebody coming and knocking on your skull, right? Our skulls are really thick and really hard, right? So it doesn't necessarily hurt a ton, but I also don't love the feeling of it, right? And I would imagine a turtle might feel the same way. Now, I did mention, just because we're talking about shells and science, I want to take a second just to give us the real scientific words, right? The top of a turtle shell is called a carapace. You can, it helps me to remember it, to think about this is the part that the turtle has to like carry around, right? It's on its back, the carapace. And down here you have the plastron, okay? I kind of think of that as like a platter that you hold something on, right? So the plastron is the bottom and the carapace is the top. And actually, if we go back to our friends, the crabs, their whole body, that whole shell, since it's all a shell, is actually called the carapace. So same name. And the other one thing that I wanted to point out specifically about the shell, since this is Shell-Abrate month, are these scutes. So on each turtle shell, or not every turtle shell, I should say. So soft shell turtles, their shells are usually covered by a really thick skin, so you don't see these scutes. But on most other turtles, sea turtles and some even land turtles, you will see these scutes. And I should also say that a turtle shell itself is actually made out of keratin, the same stuff, that our fingernails are made out of. So we actually have something in common with these turtles, even though we look fairly different. But these scutes, right? So in each of these shells, kind of these individual little shapes are called scutes. And what's super crazy about these scutes is that a lot of turtles have exactly 13 of them on their back. Okay. In fact, if we counted these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, right? So they have 13 of these scutes on the big part of their body. And then along the edge, which I can't really count from this picture, so you'll have to take my word for it, they actually have 28. And this is consistent. There are lots and lots. There's one type of turtle that actually doesn't pull its head into its shell. It kind of wraps it around. Every type of that turtle that has scutes has exactly 13 big ones and 28 little ones. And what's really interesting about these numbers is that these numbers, 13 and 28, match up exactly with our lunar calendar, meaning the amount of time that it takes for the moon to go through all of its orbits and rotations, right? So that calendar has 13 months, 13, and each of those months has 28 days. So First Nation peoples and Indigenous peoples actually thought that the turtles had a lot of symbolism and a lot of kind of majestic or mystic strength, right? Because of this lunar connection on their shells. So something to think about. And maybe if you feel like being super detailed with your turtle, you can also add exactly 13 scutes and 28 around the side. Although they're pretty tiny, so I would be very impressed. So that's just, and I am just scratching the surface, pun intended, on the wonderful world of shells, especially turtle shells. In fact, with these scutes, on some turtles, there's even a way that you can use them to help tell the age of the turtle, right? Who knew? So I hope that you have enjoyed this little bit of shell science while you have gotten creative with your crustacean or turtly into making the turtle. I won't apologize for that pun, but I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and maybe we'll see you at our next Free Arts Family Day in June. And if not, then I hope you at least come back and check out our next video, and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Oh, and I want to thank everybody for being here, including our fantastically, wonderfully supportive and generous donors, PNC and the City of Hollywood. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.